Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the session. I guess as an Aussie, I probably should say g'day. We have a wonderful session for you today that is, in fact, part of an overall session this year's GFSI, focusing on consumer and employee education. So there'll be this panel session today, and I'll be presenting on the main stage tomorrow morning. This session is the changing landscape of consumer and employee education in food safety. The way we intend to run it is that each of the speakers will give a brief introduction to themselves. I'll then have a series of questions that I'll pose to the panel, but we hope to have plenty of time available for you to be able to engage with us through a Q&A session as part of the session overall. So let me hand over to each of the speakers.
Yes. My name is Betty Fang. I'm from the USA, Purdue University. I'm an associate professor and extension specialist. And I have a group called Human Factors in Food Safety. So we study the culture, the behavior of consumers, as well as food handlers.
Hi, I'm Trish Tuig. I'm Director of Food Safety for Safe Food, also known as the Food Safety Promotion Board, which is one of the all-island bodies working across Ireland with the view to promote food safety.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Schindler. I'm the co-founder and CEO at PathSpot. We've created a modular safety system with a network of sensors and data to empower all of the critical control points, including temperature monitoring, expiration management, and hand washing and hygiene. You may have seen our devices around the conference floor for checking to see if you have contamination on your hands.
All right. Thank you all. So a question for you all to start with. The food industry is undergoing rapid change. Could each of you briefly share your perspectives on the biggest challenges and opportunities that you see in effectively communicating food safety messages to today's consumers and employees?
I will start from the consumers. So with today's world changing, so before people receive information from the television, from the radio. And today, I think a lot of our neighbors, our friends around, they receive information from social media. So that creates some barriers. Why? So they sometimes get conflicting information. Sometimes they get information from us, from educators, telling them what to do. For example, we try to push people to wash their produce under running water. But social media, on the other side, could tell them that you should use soap to wash your produce to make it extra clean, right? So that's one of the challenges. Another challenge we see over time is, from the industry standpoint, we feel like we have already clearly told you not to eat raw cookie dough, not eating raw flour. It's printed on the label. But for consumers, most of them, we survey them, they have never seen the label for years, even though they are frequent flour users. So some of the opportunities there, we could try to engage them instead of we teach them, but bring them to our side. Let them to be a champion of food safety. So engage them on social media, as well as try to engage them with storytelling and use compelling information to make them feel like I am part of it, and I want to be part of it.
Thank you.
So Betty, I would agree that we are bombarded from all sides with information. When I was a young kid, which was like about 50 years ago, I admit, there was one channel in Ireland on TV, one radio station, and like a handful of newspapers. But you know what? I could do you the Safe Cross code right now. I can remember every word of it. Don't worry, I won't. But our message today, we're trying to compete with so many other streams of information, and we're now trying to compete against misinformation as well. So Safe Food, one of the things we do is research, and we are absolutely hinged on facts. So we're trying to get through the noise, if you will, to get our message across. On research, we did a food safety culture project. We funded Ulster University to do the research project for us, and it's on our website, safefood.net right now, has been published. And it's in there, it says that repeated food safety training is necessary. It isn't good enough to say the message once. And if you don't repeat the message, then behaviours will go back to where they used to be beforehand. So like our work is never done, you could say. Also, our resources right now on safefood.net are pretty much all in the English language, but we recognize that Ireland is different, very different place today. Some of our resources we've taken on to give out in Polish, Ukrainian, etc., and that's kind of the path we're on right now to try and help to increase different languages. And also, this is a sort of a weird challenge that we have, Julian, but because our resources are actually free, because we're funded by the departments of health, we're not a business, we're not looking for funding, so our resources are free. But sometimes people think, well, if it costs nothing, it must be worth nothing, so I'm not going to bother with it. So it's a kind of a hard sell. So there you go.
No, I think those are great points. And what I think is also really interesting is in the wake of 2020, we actually have a real canvas for evolving safety information. People and consumers and employees alike are more educated and aware of the transmission vectors of illness than ever before. I mean, you used to say to people, you need to wash your hands for 20 seconds. They'd be like, that's a long time. No one says that anymore. Everyone can spit that information back at you. And so the interesting thing is people want to see investments in safety. They want to know how to invest themselves in safety. We see team members in the back of house asking how they can empower safety. And I think that canvas offers a real, to your question, opportunity for us to be able to engage this interested population. You hear the cleanliness is the new ambiance. People are going into establishments and wondering if they're clean, noticing cleanliness. This gives us a chance to really leverage that interest into action.
Thank you all. Now, obviously, we all recognise that you come from a diversity of backgrounds, given your activities, your portfolio. So I'm going to pose a question to each of you in turn that hopefully resonates. Betty, your work focuses on behavioural change among food workers and consumers. What do you see as the critical factors in designing interventions that resonate with those groups and lead to sustained compliance with food safety practices?
That's a very good question, but also a million-dollar question. So when we talk about behavior change, there are so many factors could influencing a person whether or not they're going to change that behavior. So what really fascinates me was this, I call it like social norms, right? So, or you can say their peer pressure, their peer influence. So when it comes to hand washing, for example, sometimes I feel like I want to wash hands without people looking at me. But when people look at me, I feel like, am I washing it too long? Will they think about me as a hygienic geek? Or did I wash it too short? They feel like, hey, she is a food safety professor, but she didn't really wash for 20 seconds, right? So there are a lot of those things in the back of your mind. So that somewhat geared towards like help guide you whether or not you're going to do it or not. So we could, when we design education or training materials, keep that in mind. Think about how we can engage them by using those factors embedded. So help them understand that if you do it, it's a cool thing. It's a medal on your shoulder. So another thing I want to mention here is tailored trainings. So we have been working with some very specific group. For example, veteran farmers, military veteran farmers, or people who immigrated recently to the United States. They live within their little communities. So you may notice that they have their unique challenges. People like you like to learn more from you if you understand them. So addressing their specific needs and design interventions that also touch on them, not just I translate it to Spanish, or it's just I talk to them, but also knowing that what their living situation is and what their barriers are and what they believe in. So all of those all can make the food safety intervention more effective and touch on them.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to break ranks with the panel in the sense that you've touched on hand washing. And so I think
Yes.
it's a natural segue to have Christine answer her question. I think it follows on very well. So PathSpot represents a technological leap in monitoring personal and food hygiene practices, as you've opened with. How do you balance the implementation of that sort of high-tech approach while ensuring that accessibility and understanding for employees on the ground?
I mean, it is critical that technology is accessible in a immensely fast-paced and high-growth environment like where people are working with food, right? But I think about it, and if I ask someone on the street to hand me a pen or hand me a phone, it's going to be way faster that they whip out their phone than find a pen, if they even have a pen on them. And some of the new generation of people that are working in our food service environments haven't even touched a pen in 2 weeks. So it's an interesting atmosphere where I think technology in many ways actually is making things more accessible. And Dr. Feng spoke about the critical nature of making things really relatable and real. Understanding the why is so critical in today's environment, and that's impossible to do without technology. What do our hand washing trainings look like right now? In reality, it's us saying to people, you need to wash your hands once an hour, 20 seconds, it's important. Okay, that was told to me a week ago, and then I'm in the middle of a lunch rush, and I have people wrapped around this building, and there's a million things going on. People want to do the right thing, but how do we use technology to empower them? With our solution, real time in the store, we're saying, hey, team, we missed a hand wash during that lunch rush. Real quick, let's get a quick hand wash in. Hey, team, we saw contamination show up from the broom handles. Let's all do a quick hand wash and wipe down the broom handles. Real-time, actionable, data-driven information to empower team members actually creates an environment where, number one, food safety culture is ingrained in the day-to-day operations, and number two, your point on actually creating information that's relevant to them. It's not generic pieces of, hey, food safety is important. It's in your location, at your shift, at your station, here's the 3 biggest food safety risks we see right now, and real-time how you can address them. And what we hear back from team members who implement this technology and this real-time approach is that the staff responds to this. It empowers them to create a safer environment for themselves, for their team members. Managers share that this acts as a co-manager for them, because I think what is really exciting is that people get into this industry wanting to do the right thing, wanting to serve good, quality, safe food. And if we can give them the tools to do that, those real-time trainings, those real-time alerts, that authentic approach, it empowers them to take care of the rest.
Thank you. Now back to Trish. I must say that your story, life journey, sort of resonated with me, that idea of how we've changed and the 57 channels that we sort of see today. So at Safe Food, can you discuss how your team actually tailors educational efforts
Yeah, no
to
problem.
deal with that diversity and while maintaining consistency in messaging?
Okay, so we're fairly unique, I think, because we are an all-island body. Safe Food looks after Northern Ireland and Ireland. And there are, of course, some legal differences between the 2 jurisdictions. Fortunately, not too many, so we do bear those in mind. So, for example, if we do a resource, for example, we did an allergen booklet for Ireland, and then when the time came to do the Northern Ireland version, we just changed chapter 5 or whatever in relation to declaring allergens in writing versus not in writing. So that's just one example of where we would tailor, like across the 2 jurisdictions. But broadly, we treat everybody the same. So we have got, if you will, 2 customers. We've got the food industry, and we've got the public, ourselves, if you will. So we will give general messages using TV ads, always in response to a survey which asks the general public once a year, what's important to you this year, lads? What are you most worried about? And it's usually very much, the winner is usually how to cook chicken safely. So we'll go ahead and do an ad which will say, use a meat thermometer to make sure it's cooked correctly. Or we might say, don't wash your chicken. Those sort of messages which go across on the TV or radio. We also are quite opportunistic on radio. If there's like a power cut and one of the stations gets onto us, you'll hear myself or my team on there reminding people about temperature controls and shelf life. And we're pretty regulars in the barbecue season and at Christmas reminding people about food safety as well. So that's sort of us trying to repeat the message to get good practice in there. But also what we do is we bear in mind that social media is so different. And if you want to communicate with me, get me on Facebook. Don't try TikTok for me, I'm the wrong generation. So we totally understand the generational divide, if that's the right word, where you can actually communicate to people and what messages are necessary. And LinkedIn is completely different to all of them, so we just tailor our messages accordingly. And of course, children are the future, so we've targeted with children for a long time to try and get the habits right from day one. We've got a wee character, kind of a Muppet guy called Rufus, who encourages kids to wash their hands. There's a wee song, kind of a nursery rhyme thing, a colouring book, and we're trying to get the new habits instilled quite early. We provide resources for schools about HACCP, etc., so that they can download them from our website. We also have got a lovely resource called Safe Food for Life. Again, it's free for students in secondary school or Youth Reach, where they can actually do a module online, or rather it's 10 modules online, which will give them a wee qualification. They can go ahead and get accreditation, and it allows them to get a job in the industry as well. So we find that's really helpful, and we're trying to get good habits early on. Now, to go to the other side, which is the food industry, on the island of Ireland, we've got almost 60,000 small food businesses, SMEs, where there are people preparing food all over the place. And also we have quite a big turnover of people in some of those jobs. And it's difficult to get people out to training sessions. So we've provided, again, it's free online, Safe Food for Business, where these people can go ahead and do training on any device, pick it up, put it down, and you get your certificate at the end of it for your auditing. So that's really handy for the food industry. We also try and forge links where we get laboratories together, where we kind of let them to kind of compare best practices. And last year we brought the environmental health officers from Northern Ireland to Ireland and introduced people like across the border who hadn't had need to meet each other before. But the logic being, if you went to a wedding across the border and got food poisoning, who do you go to? The guys didn't know each other, didn't need to know each other. Delighted to report it went down really well, and now there is active cooperation between them. For example, going to visit ports to understand how they work post-Brexit. So we're kind of mindful of all those different divides in what we do.
Thank you all. One more question that I'm going to pose to each of you before we open up to the audience. As we look to the future, what do we see as being the needs in the evolution of food safety education as we see an increasingly informed, at least informed if not educated, population, including both consumers and employees? And on top of that, how do we see with us as the credibles the challenge of dealing with the increasing amount of information, and particularly that coming in terms of mis or even disinformation from the rise of the influencer? Betty.
Yes, I will go ahead and start with an example. So I think we are food safety professionals. So can you raise your hand how many of you have watched this Netflix documentary called Poisoned? Yes? Yeah, so if you haven't, there could be many reasons you may know it. You just have the resistance to watch it. So yes, it's been astonishing for me when I watch it, because a lot of those people being interviewed are my dear colleagues. And when their words being cut into different angles, it sounds so interesting, so different, right? So we conducted a study. I showed this documentary to over hundreds of young adults, trying to understand what does that story change them? How does it change them? So a lot of those young adults, they don't really know food safety would be a problem until they watch the documentary. And then suddenly the biggest change was the trust. They suddenly lost the trust to the government, food manufacturers, as well as their grocery stores. They suddenly have this fear to food. So early on, I told everyone that the opportunities, what could be effective to reach out to consumers, I said storytelling. But when it comes to stories that is too strong, to evoke a too strong of an emotion, sometimes it doesn't really do the job of properly convey the facts to people. It's more about damaging. So it's a fine art how we can better tailor a food safety message that is effective but not scary. So some of the best quote I received from that study was, I'm not going to eat salad anymore. I'm not going to touch anything that is raw anymore. So if you think about, for so many years, we spend so much money on research, on extension outreach to tell the youth to eat more salad, to eat more vegetables. And now, because of a documentary, people suddenly saying that I'm not going to eat it anymore. So it's not just a food safety problem we are facing. So that's why with the evolving world, we are not only trying to educate people, trying to help them make informed decisions, but also try to protect them, how to try to navigate through all of those strong information or sometimes wrong information. So that is my point of view.
Thank you very much. Trish?
So I would say that for safe food, looking to the future, what we did 26 years ago bears no relation whatsoever to what we're doing now. The Safe Food for Business e-learning package, which we put out in 2021, I'm already looking into the future version for that. It's already looking old-fashioned. The content is fine if you do it, but to me, it's looking a little bit old-fashioned. We're looking at what the future is going to look like. We don't even know. So we're working with people with AI. We're looking at virtual reality. What's the future going to look like for training? Because online is such a big difference to in person. What's the next thing? Is it holograms? I don't know. Kind of keep tuned here, we'll find out. What we're trying to do is we're trying to change behaviors. So it's how do we get across what we're trying to say in terms of behaviors? We know that evidence is king. We know facts are king. We know you have to repeat, repeat, repeat. So really those are the kind of mantras. For safe food, we can't do this alone. We're a tiny organization. There are only 7 in my team, and there are 7 million customers which we're trying to persuade and promote food safety to. So we work very heavily in partnership. For example, we did a webinar last year on pest control, which we employed a pest contractor to kind of drive, and we had the Food Safety Authority of Ireland as one of the speakers and Belfast City Council as one of the speakers. So our partnership allows us to amplify the message because we're saying the same things, we're working together, and it also looks united as well. So we're working more and more with communities on the ground as well, because, I wonder whether it's going to become more effective as we've gone from in-person to virtual. Are we going to come back to communities? So we're working more and more with community food initiatives, men's sheds, GAA, Gaelic Athletic Association, football clubs. So we're kind of working more and more in terms with the nutrition team as well as ourselves in food safety. And what I would say about the influencers is we've got some research coming out soon. I can't reveal too much just now, but basically what it's saying is influencers work. The young people are tuned into them. They're taking notice. They don't realize it's always paid advertising, and they're tuned into them. So as far as I'm concerned with influencers, if you can't beat them, join them.
Great point. And finally, Christine.
One of my favorite things about this industry is our teams, our employees are our consumers. 10% of the workforce is made up of people who work in the food service industry. And so I think that actually empowering employees to know the whys behind things, to understand the safe environment that they are in, creates a mantra for them to go back to their families, to their friends. When team members tell their employers who have invested in our technology, this elevated my view of my workplace. I want to work here instead of at the restaurant down the road because I feel safe here and I want my family to eat here. Some of my favorite data points are when people use our technology after they've clocked out. They're not required to. And when we ask them why, that shows up in the data. They say, well, I want to be safe before I go home to my family. So we can actually use the team members that are already invested in our business to be that mantra of understanding safety and communicating that our businesses are effective and safe, and to bring that back to those ground communities that you shared. And if they know the best practices, and we can empower with the real-time data, real-time actionability, and both have them communicate it as well as communicate it to everyone who walks in. You know, we have a lot of people who will put up safety scores voluntarily. This is the hand washer of the month. This is, how well our food is kept at the appropriate temperature. 0 expiration incidents in 150 days. That's something that consumers want to see. And so I think taking the real-time data, bridging the trust, that's been such a compelling topic of so many sessions this week. What is the trust? How are we creating that trust? And I think consumers and employees alike expect to see data. They want to see results. And so if we're investing in tools to get those results, we communicate them back, and that's the answer right there.
Thank you. And now it's going to be over to you. I do have a couple of backup questions, but I'd hate to use them. So I know we've got a couple of roving mics available from the back. So please feel free. We've actually done what we said we would, and we've given over a lot of time in the session to you as food safety professionals and consumers to fire questions to the panel. Mark, thank you for being the brave first.
So I'll address this question to Betty. I was interested in the discussion, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, about the research work that you've done around the lack of cut-through for precautionary labeling on raw products. And I'm curious about, first of all, what's your hypothesis there? Second of all, what's the testing that you're doing to try to kind of further your and your team's understanding? And maybe do you have any further hypotheses around what could we do to improve the cut through, the awareness by consumers?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. This is a very good question. So, yes, a little bit background. So I talked about there is a food safety warning message on flour packages. However, consumers said that they could not really see it. So we did some studies using eye tracking glasses, trying to understand what do they see, why they could not find the message. So it's there. So we found 10, we pre-picked 10 commercially available packages. All of them had food safety message on it. But only 2 out of 47 frequent flour users could find all 10 messages. So that's how severe this situation is. And then my hypothesis is why people cannot see it. We conducted a study trying to find what did they see before they find the message. We find out that actually everyone is trying very hard. Their eye gazes goes back and forth, back and forth. Usually those food safety messages that are hard to find are buried either under those labels, those logos, or within some of the ingredients. You should bake it, and then this is the ingredient, and then suddenly they pop in, do not eat raw dough. So based on our recent test, our hypothesis is it's not just because how big the type is. It's not just about what color the words is. It's more about what's around it. So if you build a house without a proper clearing, you wouldn't really see this house very clearly. You will just see a street of houses. So that's what we are trying to test, the hypothesis. Another thing is how we frame the message. So just tell them, do not eat raw dough. Many people thought it's because the egg I added to the cookie dough. But actually not. What we wanted to tell them that the flour is raw, is a raw commodity. So a lot of people, when we try to communicate with them, later on they notice that, oh, that's why you don't want me to eat the raw dough. So tell them the whys that what Christine earlier mentioned is very, very important. So those are some of the key points from that study. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Betty. And for me, hearing eggs and being an egg guy myself, it's surprising how many people don't know where an egg actually comes from. Other questions, please.
Hi, we're currently trying to design a global food quality culture program. Obviously, we're coming across the communication difficulties of having a global audience of 10, 15 different cultures, different age ranges within our community. Are there any kind of core tips that you'd recommend to get those kind of key messages through that will land across those generations and cultures?
I'm feeling that might be a Trish question. It sounds like diversity of audiences.
I would say the first thing I would do would be to understand the legal requirements in each of the territories, because that might govern certain aspects of what you need to communicate. And then it's back to keeping it absolutely simple. So as clear and as simple as you possibly can in the messages. Other than that, really, that's probably as much as I can give you right now. Do have a look on safefood.net professional research at our food safety culture research report, which was conducted by Ulster University, funded by Safe Food last year. Now, look, I've read it, but I can't remember it. So there's bound to be some tips in there for you as well. But I would say know your legislation and keep it simple.
Thank you. Betty or Christine, any further comments?
I think the only other comment I'd share is we've found that technology can be a real asset in that environment, because the reality is food safety is very customized to the culture of the location, to the group, to the people, to your point, all different ages, all different expectations, as in addition to the culture of the brand and how that shines through. I mean, in a silly way, if we're working with a sports pub, we'll often make the trainings that we do around technology be about a March Madness bracket of food safety. But that's unique to that specific location and the culture that's going to resonate and the verbiage that will help them understand those pieces. And so I think when we work on global adoptions of our program, we really work, I completely agree, simplicity and legislation is key. And then the second piece is culture, and actually talking to the teams and understanding how do they communicate food safety today, what are the needs, and then how can we adapt and do real-time understanding of the results of those trainings, and then quickly adapt again if they're not hitting appropriately. Because if you're getting the results back and it's not improving in a region, then the likelihood is not that it's that team's fault. It's that we're not providing them the right training or the right communication of that training. And so I think not being afraid to iterate based on the feedback and recognizing that it is not one size fits all, and that's okay. As long as the core content is there, communicating it differently can make it even more effective.
And I can see that Trish is bouncing.
Yes, I've remembered something else there for you. So I would say, as well as looking at the legislation of the territory, look for guidelines, which may be available or maybe even under draft, because people are kind of getting their heads around it in some territories right now. And I'd also suggest that you look at where the industries may have certification or accreditation to a certain standard, just see what that's requiring as well, just to make sure you don't kind of contradict with the guidance that you're giving.